You might have noticed that Donald Trump and the Republicans have sort of dialed back their haste to repeal Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And more importantly, Donald Trump actually said this week that the replacement for Obamacare, which he is describing as, quote, something terrific, could take up to a year, leaving maybe 20 or 30 million people uninsured in the meantime. Interestingly, but not surprisingly, it turns out that the same Republicans who want to repeal Obamacare because it's so terrible actually like what Obamacare does and don't even realize that repealing Obamacare would put an end to those provisions that they like. We have a Morning Consult poll which shows that, for example, 53% of Republicans, most Republicans, don't realize that if you repeal Obamacare, you disable those insurance subsidies as well as the Medicaid expansion, which have made healthcare free or cheaper for millions and millions of people. Republicans and Trump supporters, right? The critics of Obamacare don't seem to know what it is or what it does. Let's put up the data from a Kaiser Family Foundation health tracking poll. Look at some of the data here. For example, 83% of Trump voters like the provision of Obamacare, which allows young adults to stay on their parents' insurance plans until they're age 26. 83%. 75% of Trump voters are in favor of eliminating out-of-pocket costs for preventative services, something that Obamacare does. 72% of Trump voters like the health insurance exchanges, where small businesses and people can shop for insurance and compare prices and benefits. 71% of Trump voters like the Obamacare provision, which closes the Medicare prescription drug coverage gap that exists. If you read down this long list, you will notice that the only items that have under 50% support from Trump voters are the mandate requiring employers with 50 or more employees to offer health insurance or pay a fine, and the mandate that requires all Americans to have health insurance or pay a fine. Republicans want all the stuff that Obamacare does, but they don't want the aspects that make it all affordable. It's hilarious that the right criticizes the left because the left wants, quote, free stuff. It's actually the right that wants the free stuff. The right wants all of the provisions of Obamacare, everything that it affords people, but they don't want the mechanism that actually pays for it. They want the benefits, Pat, but they don't want to have to pay for it, which is how it becomes affordable.
And I really wonder what percentage of Trump supporters benefited from the Medicaid expansion or just from any of the provisions of Obamacare. I mean, it has to be in the millions, right?
Absolutely. And Topher Spiro from the Center for American Progress actually tweeted out something about this, which I think makes a lot of sense when you look at it, saying, quote, "We should replace Obamacare with the Affordable Care Act and be done." Of course, joking, but pointing out that many people don't even seem to realize that Obamacare is the Affordable Care Act. And it turns out that while they condemn Obamacare without knowing much about it, it's disproportionately Trump voters who would be hurt if Obamacare were repealed. We have another Kaiser Family Foundation analysis which finds that most Americans who used that Obamacare marketplace last year live in Republican congressional districts. Policy analysts have concluded that older and more rural Americans would be most affected by a repeal of Obamacare. Older and more rural Americans were disproportionately likely to be Trump voters. Low-income households in the 32 states that expanded Medicaid under Obamacare would be significantly affected. Again, another group that disproportionately voted for Trump. This is why we can't even pay attention to what these clowns want, Pat, because they have no idea what the facts are.
Yeah, and if Republicans repeal the Affordable Care Act with nothing in its place, I mean, 20 to 30 million people are going to be kicked off their health care coverage.
Yeah.
And it's really just not going to be good for them politically.
Of course. But the concern is they'll still find a way to blame Democrats, even though it's a Republican White House, a Republican Senate, by and large, Republican governors. They will still find a way to blame a Democrat for Trump taking away their Obamacare. Today's episode of The David Pakman Show is made possible in part by Warby Parker eyeglasses. Warby Parker recently did the right thing and ditched advertising on right-wing conspiracy website Breitbart, pulling their ads off, and you can get the free 5-day home try-on from Warby Parker. Check out their glasses. I use them when I'm not wearing contact lenses. I started with the free at-home trial. They send you 5 pairs of glasses. You see which ones you like. You send them back, and whichever one you pick, they will put your prescription into. I like this because I can actually show the glasses to other people and not have to just decide on the spot like in an eyeglass store. The eyeglass industry is controlled by very few corporations that keep the prices very, very high, even over $300 for prescription glasses. With Warby Parker, they start at just $95. Mine costs that, including lenses. And for every pair sold, they give a pair to someone in need. So to try the 5 pairs and support the David Pakman Show, go to warbyparkertrial.com/TDPS.